having me here, and thank you for the introduction. I'm a bit gutted. I studied bees, but I'm not going to be on ear to the ground, so this really sucks that RT left. I thought this would be great. I need to point out, I've noticed from being down in Cork that there's a bit of like an anti-Dublin vibe. And I may sound like a dub, but I'm from Kildare. So I just want to point out that if you guys have a problem with the dubs, imagine being their fucking neighbours. But yes, anyway, I'm going to talk about bees, because that's what my research focuses on. And I suppose, yeah, it's taken me a long time, I suppose, to get to a place where I can feel kind of comfortable talking about bees in a public forum. Because this is generally, I suppose, when I started doing my PhD, I'd be out with my friends and they were all trained to be like teachers or accountants and doctors, and when you met someone new, you're just introduced as the guy who does bees. And it wasn't even compound sentences, it was just bees. And that just led to, like, you know, a lot of questions. Like, and people would have, like, you know, sometimes practical or philosophical questions. They'd be like, you know, are the bees dying out, and are we the cause? And then you just get non-philosophical questions like, do bees have heads? Or like, what are wasps? And the answer to that is, bees are not fucking wasps. The amount of times I've gotten a phone call to my office and, like, you know, I have to slide in my bee pole, and I get downstairs, and it's not just a wasp, but a fucking agitated wasp. Like, that's the But yeah, so I've had problems, I suppose, dealing with, like, some of, like, misconceptions that people have, I suppose, about bees. So first things first, anything that's ever stung you, that's a female. It's not he. He didn't do Anne. Leave the men alone. Men bees, they have their own things to deal with. So generally the colonies, you have, like, queens. They're like, you know, your sister that's prettier and, like, better looking and more wealthier. And then you got the workers. And they're the ones that, like, your mother loves, but she prefers the other one. But yeah, with regards, I suppose, yeah, with bees, I had a tough time, I suppose, at the start of my PhD. So normally people have a tough time in the middle of their PhD, but my stuff started off a bit rough. So a lot of personal problems. So my girlfriend broke up with me at the start, and then my cats, I have 2 cats, they died. And then, like, I was beaten up on a night out. And then I had to make 300 bumblebee queens. It wasn't like the same person didn't do all this shit. Like, it wasn't some mega prick who did it all to me, but yeah, trying to make bumblebee queens in winter, that was the tough one. So bumblebees, yeah. So we were talking earlier on, I suppose, Moses was talking about porn. I'm going to tell you a bit about bee porn. Whoa, it's Friday night in Cork, guys. Yeah. Calm yourself. But I suppose, yeah, like, I'm going to talk a bit about bee porn, because, like, one of the questions I always get asked about is people talk about birds and the bees. And, you know, that's not factual, that I suppose, you know, birds and bees, they don't have sex, people. Like, they break down. But, like, supposedly the etymology for that term is that people use that as a euphemism to explain to children about very complex biological processes. So explaining things like fertilization and sexual intercourse. They'll use friendly metaphors of things that they recognize. So they talk about, like, the birds, they lay eggs, and that's kind of like an example of female fertilization. They can identify an egg, and that's something that comes out of females. For males, they use bees. Now, stay with me here. The bees pollinate flowers. Now, pollen, that contains male sperm. And that gets transferred by the bees to other plants, and they cross-pollinate. So if you're allergic, like, I just heard a story about somebody allergic to human sperm, but if you've got pollen allergies, yeah, you do not like plant sperm, especially in your face. But yeah, but so, like, I ended up, like, I've made a lot of bees, and what you do, like, it's very simple. You get a box, you stick in, so bumblebees, we all know bumblebees, yeah? You think you know bumblebees. How much honey do you get, Joe? Fuck all, because they don't make it. So you put in your queens, you put in your males, you apply temperature, you apply natural light, bada bing, bada boom. You start getting magic. Magic in a box. Now, I want you to give me a bit of a hoop. When I'm going to start saying like times for regards how long you think they may mate for. So how many people think they mate for 3 seconds? A laugh. Excuse me. My girlfriend loves those 3 seconds. Okay, so no one takes 3 seconds. 3 minutes?
Yeah.
How about 30 minutes? So that's on average is 30 minutes. It can last an hour or so. And what ends up happening is that so you have your queen like this, and your male attaches on, and he's only attached by one appendage, people, you can all probably work it out. What happens is his legs start flailing, and he's got 6 of them. They start going flailing all over the place. And while he's doing it, she can move around. She can fly around, she can do her messages, she can multitask, she can do what she wants. And he's just hanging in there. But something is not right, something's a bit sinister. Now, it's art of reproduction, so it's perfectly biologically normal. But what's going on is that sperm is being transferred into the female, but also something else. So while he's doing this, he transfers a plug. Now, this is technically called a mating plug. It's not like a butt plug or something. Like wasps do the butt plugs. But this kind of like, he inserts a plug, and this ends up changing her behavior. She's no longer thinking of sex, and she's thinking about going off and having a nice sleep. So they overwinter. They go into the ground, or maybe the convent, I don't know. But they sleep anyway, and then they come out and they set up a colony afterwards. But I mainly work on bumblebees, and like this kind of question of like how bees I suppose fall into this old euphemism of birds and the bees. I was concerned about maybe like what do honeybees do? So I know very little about them. I know they make honey, which everyone else seems to know. What I ended up doing was that like I started consulting some scientific textbook. There's a lot of scientific people here, and like textbooks are really like kind of like just very technical. They're not very imaginative, and you know we work on a very charismatic organisms. Like, bees are really nice. Everyone likes them. They pollinate and they sell a lot of commercial stuff. Just their friendly images. But what I ended up doing was that like I was consulting these textbooks, and there's so many times that you can read seminal fluids and like reproductive tract, and you're like, wow. I want a nice, like fair enough, I'm not saying I want a really nice image, but I just want something that's a bit more, shall we say, a bit more creatively told. So what I did is that I started reading this book by a guy called Frederick Sladen, and he was this famous beekeeper who wrote a book back in 1912, and like it talks about like how you can raise bees and how you can maintain them and make honey. And like I actually met this guy at a conference this year. So he's 140 years old. And he specifically came to this conference and gave me this very well preserved book. And like he gave it to me, it's recyclable and everything. And he handed it to me, and his last words were, "Joe, tell them about the bees." And with that he just turned into dust. Or bees. But anyway, like even when you read the preface of this book, it sets into tone what kind of guy this is. I knew I was on the right track to learn about honeybees just from what starts off in the preface. And it's written, I'll read it exactly how it's written here. The writer, devoted to bees from boyhood, similar to myself, started life with the intention of earning his living from them. Like many other enthusiasts, he kept an apiary and he sold the honey, making money from honey. I like it. But here's a bit of tragedy. So while it was easy by these means to earn sufficient to maintain himself, the uncertainty of the British climate, so he's a Brit, made it impossible for him to support a family as well, which was his next ambition. So he wanted bees, 10 kids. Hard life. But he also possessed with a longing to become still more intimate with his bees. Now here we differ. Like, I definitely do not want to be intimate with my bees. I'm like, stay in your box. And was it possible for these two desires to be attained? Yes. So there's success in the story here. Fully, and more than fully, were they gratified by taking up bee breeding. Sorry, there's caps locks here. He wrote it in cap locks. But if we skip right to the story, I suppose, we talked about how bumblebees mate. Honeybees, is it the same? Well, I can only put it in Fred Sladen's words. And what happens is that he writes it in a very flowery manner. 1912, back when scientists were all men and they were all bastards. bastards. But anyway, he wrote it in 1912, and it's written in a really like kind of like a very like non-scientific manner, and it's very like flowery. Like sometimes when he's talking about bees, you don't know if he's talking about bees or he's talking about his wife. He's just like, you know, I saw her wander through the garden, and then she did a majestic dance what I observed for hours. You know, that could be either of them. Then in a single moment she's gone, snatched by a magpie. Like again. But anyway, it's a description of the mating process, which really is gold. So, exactly in his words. So the queen goes off for a marriage flight, like a marriage flight. Like even the description is lovely. But it's on this occasion, if the drones are plentiful, the queen is closely followed by a crowd of ardent suitors. The excitement brings more drones, probably attracted by scent emitted by the others, and the air grows thick with them. A comet-like flock of drones is formed, with the queen in the nucleus, and it darts around in an erratic manner, assuming all kinds of strange shapes. One of the swiftest and the strongest of the drones, our hero, succeeds in seizing the queen, and he flies away with her. So it's at this point where Disney start rolling the credits. Elton John comes on and can you feel the buzz tonight? Just because you're bees. I don't need a sign or complex waggle dance. They dance to communicate, people. But what happens next? So his balls explode. So the males here are heroes. But I suppose, like, I'm just paraphrasing. I'll have to put it into Sladen's terms, because, yeah, he'll put it in a bit more scientific manner. So when the two separate, the drone's organs are torn from him. And their torn ends usually protrude from the frequently gaped anus. Anus? I'm starting to think Sladen might not have known how heterosexual bees mate. And that is all he wrote, and that's all I'm going to talk about. Thank you very much.